Russian commanders have lost dozens of tanks during the war with Ukraine. Whenever these tanks enter the battlefield, they often explode after being hit by a javelin missile or running over a hidden mine. And if somehow they survive both, a Ukrainian drone is usually enough to detonate their ammunition and blow off the entire turret. Yet, despite these heavy losses, Russian commanders keep planning new assaults to break through Ukrainian defense lines. But once again, every attempt ends in complete failure. Here is a perfect example of one of their failed attacks. On October 17, 2025, a Russian T-72 tank was firing toward the Ukrainian defense line. The tank rolled through an abandoned village, shells echoing as it targeted Ukrainian positions hidden in the distance. It stopped near a bush and continued firing multiple rounds toward an area believed to be holding a Ukrainian UAV operator. But then, the unexpected happened. A German-made anti-tank guided missile was launched by a Ukrainian operator. The missile struck the T-72 head-on, causing a massive explosion that ripped the vehicle apart. In slow motion, we can clearly see the missile's impact, hitting the tank from one side, right where its ammunition was stored. And a split second later, the entire tank erupts in flames, consumed by fire and smoke. But this was nothing compared to what happened just one day earlier. On October 16, 2025, in the northeastern suburbs of Kaviri, more than 40 Russian tanks were preparing to launch a massive assault on Ukrainian positions. But before they could advance, the entire formation came under intense anti-tank guided missile fire from the Ukrainian side. According to footage shared by the Azov group, the scene was pure chaos. At around the 30-second mark, you can clearly see dozens of Russian tanks halting their advance, forced to retreat after taking multiple direct hits from Ukrainian anti-tank guided missiles. Those tanks had no choice but to abandon their push, overwhelmed by precise, coordinated Ukrainian defenses. The event showed just how strong and deeply fortified Ukraine's defensive line remains in that region. Here is another example of how a Russian assault ended in complete failure. This operation had already gone wrong before it even began. According to the plan, the Russian side prepared 4 tanks and 4 armored vehicles to move forward. But as they advanced, they passed through an area where 5 tanks had already been destroyed earlier by Ukrainian FPV drones. The leading tank tried to move carefully through the wreckage, but it hit a mine and exploded instantly. A few soldiers managed to escape and ran toward the nearby trenches. Behind them, 3 more tanks were following close. Suddenly, a Ukrainian FPV drone slammed into one of the tanks, setting it ablaze. The crew jumped out, trying to save themselves. Another drone appeared and struck the tank in front of the last armored vehicle. And within seconds, that entire column was trapped in chaos. The second tank began to reverse quickly, but it backed straight into another explosion. The fire spread instantly, turning the tank into a burning shell of metal. You can only imagine what happened to the crew inside. One of the earlier tanks, already damaged by an FPV hit, tried to pull back again, but it rolled over another mine. The explosion was massive. The vehicle was destroyed on the spot. In the end, only the Russian soldiers hiding in the trenches were still alive, but not for long. Ukrainian forces launched cluster munitions directly over their position. Those who survived the blasts scattered in all directions, leaving the area completely destroyed. But the madness of the Russian commanders doesn't end there. Despite losing tanks and armored vehicles just moments before, they continue to push forward, sending more tanks and more personnel carriers straight into the same deadly zone. As the new wave advances, one of the APCs suddenly comes under FPV drone attack. The soldiers on board quickly evacuate, sprinting toward the nearest trench for cover. But the drone doesn't stop. It dives straight into the vehicle, striking the ammunition compartment, and detonates it instantly. The explosion is enormous. Fire and smoke fill the area. Within seconds, more drones appear, targeting the rest of the column in the open field. They strike from every direction, front, side, rear, one by one, ensuring no armored vehicle survives. 2 APCs and 2 tanks were still trying to push forward under cover of smoke. Their movement slowed, cautious, trying not to repeat the mistakes of the last assault. But it didn't matter. One drone hit the second tank from behind, piercing through its armor and igniting it instantly. The vehicle burst into flames. The crew never had a chance. The leading tank, trying to stay on the same route to avoid mines, kept moving through the destroyed path. It finally stopped near a trench line, maybe trying to give cover to the infantry. But before it could even reposition its turret, a Ukrainian drone dropped a small explosive charge directly onto it. The hit was perfect, a direct strike that neutralized the tank on the spot. The soldiers who survived the initial barrage tried to hide in abandoned houses, but staying still only delayed the inevitable. Reconnaissance drones swept the area, marking every shelter and movement. Once the positions were fixed, heavier assets closed in. A T-64 tank was brought up to engage the clustered positions. It locked onto each building in turn and fired multiple rounds, tearing through walls and collapsing cover so the defenders could not remain hidden. Where rubble and smoke left small gaps, special strike drones did the rest. A Baba Yaga kamikaze drone dove onto one house and detonated, destroying the structure and everything inside. Even after that, Ukrainian forces made certain the area was clear. A BTR-4E moved in and engaged with its 30mm cannon, sweeping nearby houses. And the surrounding approaches to remove any survivors or pockets of resistance. The combination of recon, direct-fire armor, strike drones, and infantry vehicles finished the operation methodically. No shelter remained safe. And the few fleeing soldiers found nowhere to regroup. This is the new pattern of warfare: identify, isolate, eliminate. No need to rush head-on into danger. The coordination between unmanned systems and traditional armored vehicles is what gives Ukraine the upper hand. Each strike isn't random. It's calculated. One drone spots, another attacks, and then ground fire completes the cleanup. And when we talk about those Baba Yaga drones, they're not ordinary FPVs. These heavy multi-rotor drones can carry several kilograms of explosives and drop them with remarkable accuracy. They're built to finish the job, to make sure no position survives after the first hit. Paired with FPV kamikaze drones and precision artillery fire, they form a chain of destruction that's nearly impossible to counter without complete air superiority. Something Russia simply doesn't have at the front. Think about what this means strategically. Every destroyed tank, every blown-up APC, every neutralized trench isn't just a single win. It's a major psychological blow. Russian crews are now terrified to even start their engines. Imagine sitting inside a T-72 or BMP, knowing that somewhere above, a silent drone is already diving towards you with a live charge. You can't see it, you can't hear it until it's too late. That's not just physical destruction. That's mental collapse on the front lines. What Ukraine has done is turn technology into survival. Drones are cheaper than tanks, sometimes just a few $100s each. Yet they're destroying vehicles worth millions. That cost imbalance is changing everything. It's no longer about who has more tanks, it's about who can see and strike first. And right now, Ukraine leads that game. Even when you look at the numbers, the change is unbelievable. Reports suggest that Ukraine launches thousands of FPV drones every week across multiple sectors. Each brigade now has its own drone unit, often built and modified right at the front. That means faster repairs, faster upgrades, and faster adaptation. Meanwhile, Russian losses continue to rise. Hundreds of armored vehicles gone in a matter of days. But the biggest takeaway is simple. Offense in this kind of war has become almost impossible without total dominance in the air. And since Russia doesn't have that anymore, every assault turns into the same tragic pattern: movement, detection, destruction. What we're watching isn't just another battle. It's a demonstration of how old Soviet doctrine crumbles against modern decentralized warfare. Ukraine doesn't rely on one big push. It relies on hundreds of small, smart strikes. It's the difference between brute force and precision. So when you see those tanks burning, those soldiers retreating, and those drones hovering above, remember, it's not luck. It's the outcome of planning, coordination, and a complete understanding of how modern war truly works. And that's why the tide has turned. A Russian MTLB carrying soldiers was hit by an FPV drone and came to a stop. The crew jumped out and ran for cover. Moments later, another drone struck from the front, setting the vehicle on fire. To make sure the MTLB couldn't be used again, a Ukrainian tank moved in to finish the job. The tank took position, hidden behind bushes and protected by metal grids, to avoid Russian kamikaze drone attacks. It fired multiple rounds at the burning MTLB, and the vehicle exploded, sending thick smoke into the air. Russian soldiers hiding near the tree line tried to fire back, but the tank kept suppressing their positions. This happened near Chasovia, where a Ukrainian T-72 from the 24th Mechanized Brigade destroyed the Russian MTLB and eliminated the remaining occupiers in that area. In the Pokrovsk region, Ukrainian artillery opens fire on an advancing Russian tank column. Shells land dangerously close, yet the enemy continues to push forward through smoke and explosions. A drone soon joins the battle, quickly locking onto its first target. The lead tank drives straight into a shell crater, trapping itself and blocking the rest of the column. Under relentless artillery fire, the soldiers abandon their vehicles as Ukrainian gunners keep pounding the immobilized armor, trying to finish off what's left. The assault collapses. The same tank that caused the jam is struck by a drone. One precise hit ignites it, and the vehicle turns into a burning wreck. Two APCs then push closer to the city, turning into a field to avoid the mined road. Artillery adjusts fire, trying to disrupt the advance. One APC speeds forward, but a Ukrainian drone intercepts it with a direct hit. The infantry scrambles for cover as drones drop explosives from above. Their gunfire fails to stop the attacks. Moments later, the second APC hits a mine and explodes. Smoke fills the air. The breakthrough attempt is over. Another failed Russian assault. Another Russian MTLB armored vehicle, carrying soldiers and equipped with a machine gun, was moving for an operation. Suddenly, it was hit from the back by an FPV drone. The driver accelerated at full speed, trying to escape across open terrain, but another FPV drone was already tracking it. The drone struck again, damaging the vehicle. Knowing they were under attack, the MTLB crew quickly drove toward the nearby tree line and stopped. All the soldiers jumped out and ran toward cover, while FPV drones continued targeting the vehicle. Moments later, after dropping the soldiers, the MTLB managed to move again and reached a nearby road. But it didn't last long. Another drone hit the vehicle, setting it on fire. Meanwhile, the soldiers who had escaped and were hiding nearby soon found by Ukrainian drone operators from the Phoenix Group. Using FPV and Baba Yaga drones, they dropped ammunition and struck the Russian troops hiding in the area. Several vehicles and quad bikes used by the Russian soldiers were also destroyed in the same operation. A Ukrainian reconnaissance drone spotted a building where Russian soldiers were hiding and launching their FPV drones to attack Ukrainian positions. Moments later, one of the Russian soldiers came out of the building and launched a drone right from beside the entrance, unknowingly revealing their exact position to the Ukrainian side. Within moments, Ukrainian FPV drones were dispatched toward the target. As they approached, one drone hit the building directly, causing a massive explosion. The entire structure went up in flames, leaving no chance of survival for the Russian soldiers who had been hiding inside. Now, another Russian APC was sent on a mission, carrying several soldiers. A Ukrainian FPV drone struck the vehicle from behind, but it didn't explode immediately. The APC kept moving forward, trying to escape. Realizing they were under attack, some of the soldiers quickly jumped out and tried to hide in nearby trenches, but it was already too late. A third FPV drone targeted the same APC, hitting it hard and setting it on fire. Smoke began to rise from the vehicle. Just moments later, a Ukrainian bomber drone appeared overhead and dropped a bomb directly on the APC. The explosion was massive. The vehicle was carrying a large amount of ammunition, and the blast completely destroyed it. Nothing was left at the site. Now, just imagine being one of those soldiers inside that APC when the explosion happened. There was simply no chance of survival. Before we move on to the next assault, just take a moment to hit like and subscribe. It really helps us keep going. And also, you can show your support to us by giving a super thanks. Now, back to the battlefield. What you've just seen is the new face of modern warfare. Imagine yourself inside that vehicle. The heavy armor around you feels like protection. But in today's battlefield, it's more like a trap. If you step out, there's a drone watching. If you stay inside, one strike to the ammunition can turn that armor into a furnace. That's the reality Russian troops are now facing every single day. In earlier phases of this war, tanks and armored vehicles represented power. They could roll through fields, break defenses, and push deep into enemy lines. But now, that era is gone. Today, every movement, every vehicle, every soldier is exposed. Because the air above is no longer safe. Small drones the size of a football now decide life and death. The scene you just saw, a Russian soldier trying to launch his FPV drone from cover, shows how desperate things have become. They know Ukraine's eyes are everywhere. That building where they were hiding wasn't a secret base, it was a death trap. The Ukrainian reconnaissance drone found it, locked on, and one precise strike ignited everything inside. The entire structure turned into a fireball because even a single hit can trigger the ammunition stored there. One small drone, one operator, and an entire squad disappears in seconds. And then, moments later, that armored personnel carrier, trying to drop off troops and get out, didn't even stand a chance. A bomb was dropped directly on it, hitting the ammunition bay, and the explosion was so violent that there were no recognizable remains. That's the level of firepower FPV drones now deliver. This isn't about one lucky hit. It's about a pattern. Ukrainian units have learned to use layers of surveillance, recon drones to locate, FPVs to strike, artillery to finish. They call it the kill chain, and it's working. Every Russian movement in open terrain now risks being spotted, tracked, and destroyed before they can even react. Now think about it. How do you even fight in such an environment? For a Russian soldier, there's no real safe zone anymore. Forests, trenches, abandoned buildings. Nothing hides you from thermal cameras or wide-angle drones circling above. Even at night, you can be tracked by heat signatures, and the moment you're spotted, a drone operator a few kilometers away just locks on your position and sends a strike your way. This is why the old tactics no longer work. The Russians still rely heavily on mass assaults, columns of tanks, and APCS moving together, just like in older wars. But in this war, concentration is suicide. The more vehicles you move together, the easier it is to destroy them all at once. That's exactly why we keep seeing footage of multiple vehicles burning in the same area. One hit triggers the next, and soon the entire convoy is gone. Ukraine's biggest advantage now is not numbers, it's adaptation. They turned small, cheap tools into strategic weapons. FPV drones cost a few $100s, but they can destroy multi-million-dollar equipment. And this economy of destruction is rewriting the rules of the battlefield. For Russia, every loss now comes with hesitation. Tank crews hesitate to push forward. APCS stop midway. Infantry refuses to move in open terrain. That hesitation breaks coordination, and once coordination is lost, the assault collapses. You can see it in almost every failed advance: confusion, panic, and retreat under fire. And while Ukraine's forces rely on creativity and precision, Russia keeps trying to rely on brute force. But brute force no longer wins when your enemy can see everything. Drones have made the battlefield transparent. Every movement, every rotation of a turret, every supply truck. It's visible, recorded, and targetable. This is what makes modern warfare terrifying. It's not about who has the most tanks or artillery anymore. It's about who has better information, faster communication, and smarter tools. In many ways, the Ukrainians are using 21st century warfare against a 20th century army. Even morale plays a massive role here. Imagine being a Russian soldier who has seen dozens of tanks explode within seconds, APCS hit one after another, and every attempt to hide ending in fire. It's not just physical destruction. It's psychological collapse. When soldiers know that even their strongest armor can't save them, it kills their will to fight. That's exactly what's happening now. You can see it in the footage. Soldiers abandoning vehicles, running into trenches, hiding in ruins. They're not retreating because they're weak. They're retreating because the battlefield itself has changed in ways their commanders can't understand or adapt to. Meanwhile, Ukraine keeps improving. Each strike gives data. Each destroyed vehicle teaches them how to hit faster, smarter, and with fewer resources. The coordination between reconnaissance teams, drone pilots, and artillery has reached a level of precision rarely seen in any modern war. The scenes you saw, those explosions, those hits, are not isolated incidents. They're proof of an entirely new kind of warfare that's still evolving every single day. And the truth is, this evolution favors the side that can learn and adapt faster. Right now, that side is Ukraine. Now, before you go, check out the next video where a Russian Su-34 jet attacks a Ukrainian defense system. But as it tries to pull back, Ukrainian FPV drones rush in from the front and take it down mid-air. It's an unbelievable moment. Watch it now on the end screen.